Andrew Tate built an empire on knockout stats and world titles, branding himself the ultimate alpha. Everything he's achieved is about to be measured against 300,000 years of savage, prehistoric evolution. Modern fight science meets a species that hunted mammoths with its bare hands. This is the only matchup where human technique alone decides survival. Andrew Tate has 76 kickboxing wins, 9 losses, and 4 world titles, with a peak competition weight around 90 kilograms and an age of 39, and about 5 years out of competition. That is not influencer hype. It is the real resume of a man who fought for world titles across 2 continents and left the ring with a record most professionals would envy. Each championship matters. He won SKA belts at 81.5 kilograms and at 90 kilograms, plus an infusion title. Those are not local trophies or exhibition circuits. Each belt means surviving a bracket of specialists, often fighting multiple times in a weekend, against men who train for years to land a single shot. Tate's style was not built on size alone. At his peak, he weighed in just under 90 kilograms, about 198 pounds, which put him in the light heavyweight class, though he fought above that at times. He recorded at least 23 knockouts, and those were not padded stats. One example is the Jean-Luc Benoit rematch in 2011. Tate came back from a close decision loss, made adjustments, and knocked out Benoit in the 8th round to claim his first ISKA world title. He went the distance in 12-round title fights like his championship win over Vincent Petitjean in 2013, showing not just power, but the discipline and ringcraft that only come from years of high-level competition. His last fights took place in 2020, with BoxRec listing his professional bouts from 2011 through that year. That is nearly a decade at the top of a sport where careers usually end early. The gap since his last title run, 5 years and counting, means he is no longer in prime condition, but technique and fight EQ do not vanish with age. He has fought and beaten bigger men, managed range against brawlers, and outlasted pressure fighters in championship rounds. Whatever else you say about Andrew Tate, his combat record is the real thing. That is the baseline for this matchup. The next question is whether modern fight mechanics can do anything against prehistoric power. A world champion's arsenal doesn't just look good on a stat sheet, it's built to hurt, disable, and finish fights. Tate's bread and butter is the leg kick. Not a tap, but a whip-crack strike aimed at the outer thigh or just below the knee, targeting the peroneal nerve. When a pro like Tate lands at full force, the impact measures over 1,500 newtons, enough to buckle a man's stance or deaden the leg for the rest of the fight. The peroneal nerve runs close to the surface, just behind the fibula. Hit it right and the foot drops, dorsiflexion vanishes, and the opponent's mobility falls apart. It is not theory. Jose Aldo did it to Arija Faber, turning a champion's thigh into a purple swollen log. In kickboxing, the calf kick is the great equalizer. Bigger or stronger does not matter. If you cannot plant your foot, you cannot fight. But that is just the first weapon. The head kick is where physics gets violent. A roundhouse thrown by a 90-kilogram striker like Tate spins the head at over 6,000 radians per second squared. That is rotational force, not just brute strength, angular momentum, whipping the skull so fast the brain cannot keep up. Medical studies put the knockout threshold around 4,500 to 8,000 radians per second squared. Tate's best kicks at full extension land in that danger zone. Even heavyweights struggle to stay upright after a clean shot. The force is not just linear. Hip rotation, foot placement, and shin velocity combine to turn a leg into a baseball bat. It is why a head kick knockout looks instant. The brain shuts off before the body hits the mat. Range management turns these weapons from highlights into tactics. Tate's style keeps him on the outside, using long kicks and lateral movement to stay away from clinch range. A striking coach breaks it down. The goal is not to outmuscle a bigger man, it is to chop the legs, disrupt the base, and force mistakes. Angles matter. Step off, feint, draw a charge, then punish the exposed limb. It is a game of inches, not brute force. Against an opponent who has never seen a leg kick, the first few land clean. If the base goes, everything else follows. Tate's path to real damage is simple. Stay mobile, invest in the legs, and wait for the opening up top. That is how a modern striker turns credentials into consequences. A modern leg kick lands with enough force to crumple a trained fighter's stance, but Neanderthal anatomy rewrites the rulebook on damage. Their femurs and tibias were not just thicker, they carried up to 60% more bone in cross-section than today's athletes, with a cortex dense enough to shrug off impacts that would fracture a human shin. Paleoanthropologists like Eric Trinkhaus measured these diaphyseal walls, and the lower legs were built for surviving the kind of blunt trauma that ends careers in combat sports. The numbers do not flatter modern humans. A professional kickboxer's shin can deliver 4,000 to 7,000 newtons in a single strike. That is enough to break a gracile tibia, but Neanderthal bone geometry absorbs the load, dissipating force through a wider shaft and thicker cortex. Finite element modeling, digital stress tests on fossil bones, show their legs withstood higher bending and torsional forces than any living athlete. The practical upshot: even a barrage of full power kicks would bruise muscle and irritate nerves, but the odds of snapping bone are slim to none. Surviving trauma was not hypothetical for Neanderthals, it was a way of life. Shanidar I, a male found in Iraq, lived for years after a crushed arm, a blinded eye, and multiple healed leg fractures. At La Chapelle-aux-Saints, another skeleton shows advanced arthritis, lost teeth, and evidence of chronic injuries. These are not isolated cases. Across Europe and the Middle East, their remains tell the same story: broken ribs, battered skulls, crushed joints, all healed. Their pain threshold and capacity to function through injury outstrip anything in modern sport. Muscle mass only adds to the armor. Thick quadriceps and calves cushion impacts, spreading force across layers of tissue before bone ever feels the shock. Even the best-placed kick, right to the peroneal nerve, might slow a Neanderthal, but it will not stop the advance. The infamous grip strength, often quoted at 600 pounds, is a high-end biomechanical estimate, not a direct measurement. What is certain is that their hands and forearms were built for crushing, not just holding. Against this kind of resilience, striking becomes a game of attrition. Tate's arsenal can cause pain, swelling, and nerve disruption, but there is no quick collapse, no easy shutdown. The physical stalemate is not just likely, it is almost inevitable when bone and muscle are this overbuilt for survival. Neanderthal physiology was built for violence measured in seconds, not minutes. The barrel-shaped chest and wide ribcage held lungs that could flood muscles with oxygen for a sprint or a wrestling match against a wounded bison, but not for round after round of sustained movement. Explosive power was the currency, short, brutal bursts that ended with either the prey or the hunter on the ground. Their world did not reward pacing or tactical retreats. It rewarded whoever could close distance and finish the fight before fatigue set in. Modern fight sports flip that script. Tate's cardio was honed for 3-minute rounds, 1 minute to recover, then back in. Kickboxing rewards the fighter who can manage their heart rate, control the clock, and still throw with power in the 12th round. Even 5 years out of competition, Tate's body knows how to ration energy, attack, reset, recover, repeat. In a ring, time is a weapon. If he can stay mobile, force the Neanderthal to chase, and land damage without getting caught, every passing minute tilts the odds toward modern endurance. But the clock only matters if the fight lasts that long. There is no intimidation edge to buy Tate time. His psychological toolkit, trash talk, stare downs, the aura of the top G, has no purchase here. A Neanderthal did not know about reputation, did not care about status updates or viral moments. It faced down mammoths and cave bears, not social humiliation. Fear was a tool for survival, not a show. The fossil record is full of trauma survivors, shattered arms, crushed faces, injuries that would end a modern athlete's career, all healed over years. This was not bravado. It was baseline expectation. You got hurt, you kept moving, or you did not make it to the next hunt. Tate's mind games are built for opponents who care about losing in front of a crowd. A Neanderthal's only audience was the next meal or the next threat. There is no ego to crack, no brand to defend. The only thing that matters is what happens when the lungs burn, the legs give out, and neither side gives ground because there is nothing else to fall back on. The fight does not start at the bell. It starts the moment one of them runs out of gas. This is pure physical reality. In a world obsessed with alpha credentials, nature still writes the original rulebook. Today, our strength is measured in likes, not survival. But the reality remains, evolution never cared about brands, only outcomes. Some battles are decided long before the first punch is thrown. Nature decides the outcome.